Well, greetings, friends, and welcome to today's edition of Extraordinary Connection. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Devin Smith, and I serve as the pastor at Romeo United Methodist Church. I'm so glad you've taken a moment out of your day to join us here to spend a few minutes with God's Word. And as I was preparing for today, I took just a moment to look at the Extraordinary Connection site. And in looking at some of the stats and metrics that were on there, I had to stop and pause for a moment. You see, if I look back over the past 4+ months, this devotion today represents the 127th post made on our site. Those 127 devotions have come to us from 16 different contributors, some as regulars and others as guests, some as guests who have since become regulars. And with each of those devotions has come hundreds of viewers, hundreds of people who have been able to come and be a part of this journey, this extraordinary journey with us. And I'm thankful to each of those contributors to our site, thankful for their perspective, thankful for their words, thankful for the messages and words of hope and encouragement they have shared during this time. And I am also thankful to all who are represented in those site views on the metric page, to those who have reached out and shared kind words with us and encouragement to us, to those who have shared our devotions with others, shared them with family or friends because the word spoke to them and they thought it might speak to their loved one or friend as well. Those who have shared the devotions with the hope of spreading just a little bit of love, a little bit of hope to others during these unknown times. And if you've been following us from the beginning, you know that this site was started as the necessary lockdowns and the need for social distancing was just beginning. And I still remember the question that was asked by one of my church members. It was the last evening we had at the church before the quarantine began. It was during our Wednesday night meal and study at the church. And as we talked about the possibility of having to do some type of quarantine, they asked, if it happens, what are we going to do? The question was framed in concern for the church. What are we going to do if we can't gather for worship? What are we going to do if we can't serve our meal on Wednesdays? What are we going to do if we can't have this time of fellowship? What are we going to do if we can't hold our normally planned programming? And we didn't realize it back in mid-March, but there were more questions that were going to have to be asked. What are we going to do for Easter, for graduation Sunday, for mission trips, for VBS, for baptisms, for weddings? How will we say goodbye to our pastor? How are we going to welcome a new pastor? What are we going to do? I won't dare minimize any of those questions because they all were and they all remain important questions that we have to ask as the church. What are we going to do? When is it safe to be in the church? When is it safe to do our normally planned programming? I don't have all the answers. I may not have any of the answers, because I believe the answers to those questions, they vary a great deal depending on the individual church, on its people, on how best they can keep everyone safe. The answer is not the same for all of us, for our individual churches, for us as individuals. It's what makes it a hard question to ask. But here today, I want to implore all of us, clergy and laity alike, to continue to make our first answer to the question, what are we going to do? I want our answer to continue to be, we are going to trust in God. We're going to trust that God will continue to work and speak and guide us. We are going to continue to pray and seek God's wisdom rather than our own as we deal with the difficult choices we must make. You see that question, what are we going to do? It's not a new question. As the Israelites were being chased and found themselves between the Red Sea and Pharaoh's army, I'm sure there were those who asked, what are we going to do? As Joshua and the Israelites came upon the city of Jericho with its towering walls carrying their trumpets, there were surely those who wondered, what are we going to do? As the Israelites looked down into a valley and watched a mountain of a man threaten them day after day, they too surely thought, what are we going to do? And as the disciples watched the sky turn black, as they watched Jesus breathe his last breath, they surely wondered, what are we going to do? This is not an unusual or an unfamiliar question to be asking. But let me likewise remind you that the answer is likewise a familiar one. Let us continue to trust in God. Let us turn to God and seek God's will. For it was God who parted the sea. It was God who brought down the walls. It was God who strengthened young David and guided the stone from his sling. It was God who rolled away the stone from in front of that tomb. When things look bleak, they look desperate, when we find ourselves wondering what comes next, what we should do, it's in those moments that the same answer remains. We need to put our trust in God, to recognize and acknowledge that God is already at work. God has not taken a break during these past 4 months. God is working as only God can. Through the words and actions of those who place their trust in God, God is at work. Through the ministries and the outreach that continues to take place, even if it isn't our normal operating procedures. Through worship in new and different ways. Through people like you and me who are willing to do the work that needs doing. God is at work. So what are we going to do? My hope, my prayer, is we are going to be the church. In whatever form that may take, in whatever form that is necessary, whatever form that is possible, whatever way we can share the love of Christ with our neighbor. God is at work, so we will be too. Today, tomorrow, and always. Until next time, my friends, take care, stay safe, and God bless.